On today's episode of the Bradeaux and Will Show, we're going to be going over the keys to the game for the Rockets and Warriors game one and the entire series as a whole. So definitely stay tuned for this episode. You're not going to want to miss it.
All right, and welcome back to the episode of the Bradeaux and Will Show. Y'all heard Brad in the intro. We're going to go over some keys for the Houston Rockets versus Golden State Warriors first round playoff series. And to kind of go over those X's and O's and those keys to the game, we had to get my boy DeAndre on the show again. I think it's kind of his forte to the basketball discourse. So, DeAndre, how you doing today, man?
Doing good, man. Glad to be back on the show.
Yes, sir. Dre, what's this, like number four? Fourth time on the show?
I think three or four, one of them.
There you go. We just told J-Dub on the last episode. It was like his seventh time. He's definitely got the lead. So I feel like you a close second, if not for Vanessa. So it shows a lot to you.
It's probably between him, Vanessa, Eco, and then I think Ryan Hollins has been here a couple times. So it's a tightly contested race. I'll have to go look it up after the pod, see who actually has the lead, because DeAndre is definitely in the Vader's also been here a lot. Yeah. I actually think Vader
probably do got me. Yeah,
Vader probably got him. Yeah. All right, whatever. We can get into the pod though.
Yeah, Dre. Or go ahead, Will. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, yeah, we were. I guess we can go over just each present one key, and we'll kind of go around 3 times and figure out what we think that the keys to this Rockets Warriors series are. I'll let the guest go first. His first key for how the Rockets can and will go on to win this series.
Yeah, y'all asked me, I was like, man, like how deep in the X's and O's do I want to go? So I just finished watching all 5 of the matchups that we played yesterday. And it's hard to take away from some of those games. Like the game before the All-Star break, you started Aaron Holiday and Jayshawn Tate was the first guy off the bench. No Bari, no Tari. Steve-O was still in kind of limited action. No Fred either. So it was a bit weird to take stuff from that game. From this last game that we played them, it was an excellent defensive game plan, but it's hard to say you're going to hold Steph Curry to 3 points every single time. Obviously, there's things you could take from that, but can't really replicate that exactly 1-to-1 every single time. So I went back to the in-season tournament game, or the NBA Cup game now. I was there in person. I was there with the side, and being able to see it from the TV point of view really did change a bit of how I saw the game went. And the number one thing I noticed in that game was how physical they were with Steph off the ball. It's always been the thing with the Warriors of, well, they're allowed to do moving screens. I'm allowed to hold Steph off the ball. I'm allowed to push him, nudge him. You got to give me the leeway if you're going to give them the leeway. The one guy, however, that was not physical was really Amen Thompson. It was a different type of physicality. It wasn't jersey grabbing, arm pulling. He was just beating him to the spot over and over again. He was just being more athletic. He was being relentless. And I think that's probably the main defensive key that I took away from everything was you got to keep Amen Thompson out of foul trouble. And you got to make sure that he is attached and glued to Steph Curry as much as possible. Every other game that we played against them, whenever Amen wasn't making contact, Steph was coming over a screen or a handoff or a Draymond pin down and getting wide open look after wide open look. The same thing we've seen with Steph Curry for the past decade at this point. With Amen Thompson on the court, every action was getting blown up. There was contact everywhere. I don't think he does it in a 7-game series, but there were times last game where Steph just went to the corner and said, play 4-on-4. You guys got to take up the space. So I think that's the main takeaway that I took away was if Amen Thompson is on the court, Steph's going to have his Steph moments. He's one of the greatest players of all time, but that guy's going to make his job difficult. And as long as Amen Thompson can make sure Steph Curry is 70% Steph and not the Steph that we know he can be at Toyota Center, I like our chances, and I really like what the rest of the defense can do when it comes to stopping Jimmy, stopping Podziemski, Moses Moody, stopping those Draymond handoffs and off-ball actions, whether we see Kuminga or not. I trust the rest of the guys to deal with that. And obviously it's always going to come down to he's the system, shut down the system, and we've got the guy who seemingly was built in a lab to stop the system. So that was the main thing that stuck out to me watching the film, especially on the defensive end.
Yeah,
I want to piggyback off that real quick. Because that was my first key. I was in Facts and Stats playback room the other day. Shout out to Ev. Shout out to Facts and Stats. That's a funny room if you've ever been in there, man. But I was in that room last week when we knew that we were gonna draw the Warriors in round one. And one of the things exercises that Ev had us do in that room was he wanted us to list the top 10 players in that series. So we thought I guess from an impact perspective, who were the top 10 players between the two teams. And my vote for at least for number one for the Rockets was Amin Thompson. And I think that from an offensive perspective, I think Shingle's gonna have a better series from an offensive perspective. I think it wouldn't even shock me if like Dylan Brooks has a super duper like magnet ball kind of series where he puts up a lot of points because I think they're gonna let him shoot a lot of open threes this series. Um, and so it wouldn't surprise me if Amin isn't necessarily the best offensive player, but the reason why I said he was going to be the most important player for the Rockets is the reason we're going to win this series is not going to be because we win a shootout with the Warriors. It's going to be because we stop them from doing that very thing. And I think the person who's going to do that to like the highest degree will be Amin Thompson, right? We saw what he did on Steph Curry the last time we saw them. Knock on wood, I don't think he's going to hold Steph to just 3 points, a second time. But what I do believe he will do is I do believe he will make it very, very difficult on Steph and make him work for it. You look at a lot of the ways Steph Curry is able to score, and I mean we know we're right because we've seen it a lot. The way he scores a lot, right, is you lose him off ball. Is it? I mean, y'all let me know if I'm tripping. Is it far fetched to say Steph Curry might be the best conditioned NBA player ever? Like,
Yeah, no, I
I
agree.
Yeah,
think he
I think
might
he
be.
is probably.
Like the way he's able to, at least offensively, right? Maybe you could argue LeBron because LeBron and Giannis do it on both ends, but like Steph offensively, from the moment he crosses half court, or not even the moment he gets the ball, honestly, you have to be in his face. You have to watch him because even if he doesn't have the ball, and people argue all the time, he actually is a bit more dangerous without the ball in his hands,
Yeah.
with the way he constantly cuts, constantly moves, constantly running around the court, and he's very the change of pace is quick. He can go north, south, east, west, and juke you out. Next thing you know, you're playing catch trying to catch up to him. And I think that one of the reasons why we've struggled in the past guarding him is because like it's difficult to stay in front of a guy who can move and have that stamina on offense. You'll get tired guarding him. I think Amin Thompson, being one of, if not the best athlete in the league, arguably one of the best athletes ever to the sport, right? We don't see Amin Thompson get tired too often, too easily, right? That's one thing that he's. I'll shout out to Jada up here. Jada, when we're in playback, Jada's always like, Amin is not even sweating right now. Like he doesn't even look tired. This is after Amin's played like 35 straight minutes. So Amin has the conditioning and the speed to keep up with Steph, right? So Steph is not going to be able to just shake him loose and tire Amin Thompson out throughout the series. I believe Amin will be able to stay with him. But also, one thing that Amin Thompson is really good at is his recovery. And I think that because Steph is Steph, so Steph is going to beat him, right? It would be foolish of me to assume that Amin is going to be able to contain Steph and stay in front of Steph the entire time. But what Amin does have is like generational recovery, right? So when Steph does inevitably beat him, I believe Amin Thompson's athleticism, his length, and just his IQ on the defensive end will help him get back into the picture and help him contest Steph's shot. And I think that with the way Amin guards him, right, with the way he hugs Steph, right, the way he chases him off screens, the way that he, is very much in his face when Steph has the ball. I think that, like I said, I don't think there's no such thing as stopping Steph Curry, right? Steph Curry wants to go off, he's going to go off. But what you can do is you can make it tough on him. And I think that if there's anybody who can make it tough on him, on Steph Curry, I believe it is Amin. And I think that's going to be the biggest reason or the biggest swing factor in this series is Amin staying in front of and containing Steph to the best that he can do. And then it's going to now come to, can the other guys, can we stop Jimmy? Can we stop I bet you Pods is going to have a game where he hits like 4 or 5 threes. Can we contain stuff like that? So I think that's where the series heads to after we talk about stuff.
Yeah, we all had the exact same first key because I was going to talk about him in as well. I just went back and watched. I didn't watch all 5 of the games, Dre, but I did watch that last game where the Rockets won by 10 in Golden State. And Amin, from the first tip, he is face guarding Steph the entire time. Out of the entire times that I watched him on the court, I think Amin lost him one time, and it was when the Warriors got an offensive rebound and kicked it out. And luckily, they didn't make the extra swing to Steph, so he didn't even get the shot off. That was it. Outside of that, Amin was right there. I mean, he's cutting them off anytime they try to do a screen. Amin's right there to the point where we got moving screens. The Warriors announcers were in awe. They were like, "Oh yeah, Amin's doing an excellent job. He's not letting Steph get anything off." And that's going to be the key to this series, making this a 4-on-4 series when Golden State has the ball. Make them let Jimmy. Jimmy's a great player. Again, make him win the game. Make other guys like Paz, these other people. When you watch the Rockets and Lakers series, you got guys like Gabe Vincent and Dorian Finney-Smith popping off for 6, 7 threes. That's by design. You know, the Rockets don't want the stars to beat them. So that's what I'm going to see in this series. It's been an excellent job of men's done on Steph, and it hasn't just been him. Dylan's been hedging very hard when the men's not there. Dylan's face guarding. Fred did an excellent job as well. They're double teaming and they're making him pass. If they're going under, they're making sure the guy on the other side of that is hedging very hard. So it's going to be the key. You got to stop the greatest shooter of all time. It's not easy. It's not an easy task by any means, but a man can definitely do it. As I forgot which one y'all said it, but he's built in a lab to guard Steph and Curry. So I'm very excited to see what he does. Again, just keep the face guarding. They're going to try to do those pin downs and a whole bunch of other actions, but just making sure you're double teaming and hedging and not letting him get any open looks. That's the main thing. But yeah, that was all I had on the Stephen Curry key. Does anyone else have anything to add on that?
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see how the refs call it. I think that's another thing I'm looking forward to, in specifically to that matchup. I'm assuming playoff basketball, they'll let them be a bit more physical, and I feel like we've developed a reputation of being a physical team now at this point. So hopefully they give us a little more leeway. I will say sometimes that works in the offensive player's favor. You're going to try and see Steph push off a little bit more, try and use some of the men's momentum and weight against him in some of those instances. So we want to see how the refs call it, if it's by the book or is it a little more leeway because it's playoff time. So I think that'll be a tiny little factor in the swing of it.
I agree. I'll kick off another key really quickly. I'll say this. A huge key, in my personal opinion, is Jaylen Green. I'm sure you guys will say the same thing. He hasn't had the best career against the Golden State Warriors. I'm not even going to list off the stats. I want to say Will and I mentioned it when we were on with Mars a few weeks ago. But historically, he has not been good against Golden State. But in that last game, he had a great second half. And he was a huge reason why the Rockets ended up winning that game. Hit a few step-back threes. Had, I want to say, had 10 points in the fourth quarter. If he can get off, and Jaylen Green, a guy who plays every single game, 164 straight games, and longer than that, it even goes back to 2023. But anytime he gets an extended break, I feel like it benefits him a ton. So I'm excited to see him get this week off and see what he does. He just deactivated the socials. Hopefully he's locked in. But from a game perspective, they're going to be blitzing him. That's what Steve Kerr has done. Dre, I'm sure you've seen it in that first game you watched when we were down by like 30 or something. Kerr was blitzing Jaylen from the start. And Jaylen's going to have to be able to stay engaged, go get the ball, make sure he's not out of the action completely. He has to be assertive, get to the cup, and take his shots. Hopefully he's not settling for deep mid-range pull-ups. Jaylen is an excellent player. If he gets off, this Rockets team can beat anybody. They're 13-1 this year when he scores 30 points. Then that one game they lost, he had a last-second layup to get to 30, so I won't even count that one. So just get off, and the Rockets, they're already a top 4 team as is. If he's getting off, I said on a different podcast, I don't know who beats the Rockets.
Yeah, I think the Jaylen Green point was one I had too. I think that he'll see a lot of heavy blitzing. It's something that they did against him in most of the games. And the one game they didn't do it was the last game we played him. They were kind of okay with just switching off Jimmy onto Steph. And if they live with that, if they live with just conceding switches on Jaylen, he's got to be aggressive. He's got to get downhill. He's got to force that defense to collapse and rotate. And he's got to score. Like, he's got to look for his own at times and just realize Steph Curry can't stay in front of me. He can't guard me. It was a walking paint touch with Steph on him every single time. And they were okay with that matchup. I don't know if that was actually the game plan or just something that happened as the game flowed along, but he's got to be aggressive in those instances. And he's been better dealing with the blitzes and the traps this year. His points per possession has gone up, I want to say basically half a tenth or something like that. He's not the worst in the league at it, which is what he was last year by every metric. He's kind of like a middle of the pack guy in terms of dealing with blitzes and traps, but he's always going to be near the top in terms of amount of times blitz, amount of times traps. So just continuing to see the read out of there, reading hands, whether I need to bounce past this, throw this high. Because when he gets off the ball, just the gravity that he has. Now I've got Alperen Sengun in a 4-on-3 with the Ben Thompson going baseline. I got Dylan Brooks on the opposite wing, ready for a kick out. It might be Tari in the corner, Jabari in the corner. It might be Fred. It just opens up the floor so much, and it allows for Sengun to be the guy that we know he is, just this masterful passer, a great processor who gets the ball in the middle of the court on 4-on-3s. I like our chances in that. So it's really going to be dependent on Jalen's ball handling, just how comfortable he is dealing with those traps, coming off of screens, and just making shots at the end of the day. If we get a 36, 37% 3-point series from Jalen, it's going to be a long night for the Warriors. If we get a, God willing, if we get a March heater, if we're talking like 40 on pull ups, if we get something where Jalen Green looks like March Mamba, then it might be a really, really long series for the Warriors. So just really seeing the type of Jalen Green we get in terms of his aggressiveness and effectiveness, I think it'll really, really tell how far this series will go and how far the Rockets can go in general in the playoffs.
Agree.
I won't necessarily recite that. The point I was going to make is that I think we would all agree that the three best offensive players in terms of like their importance to the team offensively, I would say it's Jalen, Shingun, and Fred, and you can rearrange that order in any order that you want to. But I think those are the three guys in terms of offensive importance to the team. Like that is their contribution. It's more on the offensive end, right? Obviously, they contribute, like especially Shingun and Fred. They've definitely contributed a lot defensively this year, and Jalen has as well. But like their main contribution is to be the offense, right? We're not going to look to Tari Eason and say, hey, we need 20 points from you tonight. We're not going to look at Jabari Smith and say, hey, we need 20. That's kind of in the hands of Fred, or like no, not even to just get 20. We're not going to look to you to orchestrate or run the offense. That's usually Jalen, Fred, and Shingun's job. And so I've been saying this all season. Shout out to the TikTok if you've been following me over there. One thing that I've been saying all season on TikTok is I think we can beat the Warriors if just one of them goes off, right? If one of them has a good series, I think we can win, right? That'll probably be a 6-7 game series though, right? Like that's one where you see the in-season tournament things where it's like games are being decided by like single possessions, right? I think we can win, especially like if things go our way in a single possession, I think we can win. I think we will win if at least two of them go off. And I think if all three of them have a good series, I think it's 4 or 5 at that point. Because the thing that I love about our team is people look at the Rockets or look at the league and say, from a traditional sense, you fall back on a superstar when things don't go well, right? So, like, for example, the Bucks game that's going on right now, Giannis is kind of the only stabilizing act for the Bucks right now, right? The Rockets don't actually have something like that. What we fall back on, what we know is going to be constant every single night, is our defense and rebounding. I know going into this series, we're going to be a very physical team. We're going to compete on the defensive end. We're going to crash the boards. We're going to get second chance opportunities. Like that's our strength. That's our forte. And if all this goes wrong, that's going to be there. What takes us above that is then the fact that we have a guy or two or three who can then get their own offensively, right? So that's where Jalen and Shingun and Fred step in. Like I said, if one of those guys plays well, I think our defense and rebounding, I think we can win the series. I think we will win the series. I don't see how, like, if Jalen and Shingun, I mean, it's the cross your fingers pipe dream at this point. If them dudes both give us 25 on league average, for their position efficiency, I don't know how to work. Like, respectfully, I don't know. That sounds like Devin Booker, but like, I don't know what do you, because the defense is going to be there. So now you're getting, a efficient 50 points between Jalen and Shingun, one on perimeter, one down low. I don't really know how. Like I said, you throw in Fred in the mix there. Maybe he's one of the guys who has a good series. We saw him, what was it, like 12 straight points or something like that against the Warriors in 2019. Obviously, that was a couple years ago, but like we've seen him have big series in the past, and he stepped up for the Rockets in big ways. He was he was the reason we beat LKC. That was in November. Yeah. He's had a couple of games this season and even last season as well, where like he steps up and hits really big shots, a lot of big shots and timely moments for the team. And so I think if two of those three guys have a good series, I think it's over for the Warriors. But like I said, all three of those guys have had moments where they've looked great. They've also had moments where they've looked not so great. And then I don't know what Fred's numbers look like against the Warriors, but we know what Shingun and James look like against the Warriors. It's not the greatest, but playoffs are different animal. And they were playing their best basketball to end the season. So like I believe they can kind of carry that momentum into the playoffs. And hopefully we like I said, hopefully we get at least two of them. I think that'll be enough to win the series.
I'll say this. I wasn't going to talk about Fred, but since you brought it up, he's averaging 9 points on 23% from the field against the Warriors in his last 5.
I can imagine.
Yeah, so he's got to pick that up. I was going to, and in fact, that was our second key, so I'll kick off our third key. I was gonna say Aaron Holiday. He's gonna play a big key series. Or he's gonna be a big key in this series. He's played in the last 5 matchups against Golden State. Popped off for 25 in one of those games. So I think he's gonna get burned. Typically, I was gonna say Houston's gonna be running an 8-man rotation, but shooting will be important. So I'm imagining Aaron Holiday does get some burn and some spot minutes. But I was gonna talk about Jabari Smith Jr. He's averaged 16 points in his last 5 against Golden State, around 38% from the three-point line, 60 true shooting percentage. He's going to be a key part in this series because not only can he play in a normal lineup, a double big lineup, they're going to need him in those small ball lineups for sure against a Golden State team who's going to be, again, as we talked about, trying to get Steph open on a million screens. It's a heavy motion team. They lead the NBA in assists. So Bari in those moments, he's very key. He helps them defensively on the boards. So he's going to be a big key in my personal opinion. Hopefully he gets off. He's been scoring pretty well off the bench for the Rockets. So I'm excited to see how he does. Outside of him, I'll give some love to Şengün. He has to go at Draymond. There's times where he gets the rock again. Dre, you watch all 5. You can tell me if I'm lying. Şengün, he's going for the fadeaway. He's not going at Draymond as much. He's kicking it out. I want to see Şengün go at Draymond. He did it a little more in that last game. It was way more physical. But go at Draymond's chest. Put these guys under the rim. And don't shy away from contact. If he gets to the free throw line, you just got to hit him. But I don't want to see him being conservative, passing it out, and settling for post fades. That's not his bread and butter.
Yeah, that was going to be my last key is more so focused on Şengün, but with both bigs is be physical, dominate the paint. We're going to have a massive size advantage on the Warriors, both on the offense and defensive end. So especially from Şengün's point of view, he's got to be a dominant big. You know, I've harped about it in playback, and if you follow me on Twitter and see me on the timeline, I don't want to see the 19-foot ISOs. I don't want to see the hang dribbles this series. Get in the post. Make Draymond guard you. Make Draymond play with his chest. And when he tries playing with his chest, go through his chest. Make him pick up that 5th foul. Make him like see if he wants to foul out the game. They're gonna try and be physical with Şengün, and it's the reason why I get frustrated when he doesn't do it. It's because I know he can do it. He can be a very physically dominant low post player, and I think that's gonna be really key this game. They're gonna try and send weird doubles at him. They're going to try and make him very uncomfortable with the Draymond matchup. Sometimes it might be Draymond roaming with Looney on him. They're going to try and make him uncomfortable in a ton of different aspects. He's just got to be more physical than those guys and just show that I am the more talented player. I'm the more talented scorer, and I'm bigger than you, and I'm stronger than you, and I am, again, more talented than you. I think that if he is the dominant low post scorer, I know he can be and that I've seen him to be. One, the Warriors bigs are going to be in a ton of foul trouble. And 2, to Will's point earlier, I'm getting that efficient 25 now. Some nights I've seen Şengün, it might be 30 this night. It might be 30 and 10. And then the more he scores, now I got to get back to what he's truly special at, passing out the post. When he is the roller, now they have to hard collapse. I got a man coming baseline to baseline. So really just wanting him to be just especially physical this series and trying to be physically dominant. And for the other bigs, you brought up Jabari. I think he's going to play a key really key point in the series too of when it is those double big lineups. I love saying it's really triple big when he's on the floor because he's 6'11". He's the second tallest guy on the team. So it's him crashing the glass. It's him being that spacer in those lineups. But again, still him not settling when you got Brandon Pajemski on you, not settling when they throw Gary Payton on you, realizing that, yeah, I can shoot over this guy, but I can get to the basket too. Yeah, I can maybe settle for this semi-contested 3, or I can do what I do, get in the post, shoot my post fade against this guy because it's not going to be a contest. And just attacking the glass overall, I think, just in terms of the final point of just really, really using our size. The Warriors are 11th in overall rebounding percentage. I want to say they're plus 1.3. Shout out to Midi and Centers Culture for that. We are number 1 in the league, and I believe second place is like 3 percentage points behind us. We are arguably the greatest rebounding team in the history of the sport. Like, genuinely. If they can just continue to be dominant on the glass, that's something that we don't have to change our identity for, and that's something the Warriors have to have a complete identity shift with. They're going to have to get used to sending forward to the glass. Brandon Pajemski is going to have to get used to crashing the defensive glass. Jimmy's going to have to crash the glass more. Draymond, a guy who is a decent rebounder, but a guy that likes getting that outlet pass and looking ahead, he's going to have to be the guy that continues to box out and crash the glass over and over. So if we can make sure we maintain our identity as the dominant team on the glass while they have to get used to that level of physicality and used to that idea of sending forward to the paint, I just think that this could be a really, really long series for them. And I think it just, with all the factors that we mentioned, if I'm gonna steal Will's adage, if we at least get 2 or 3 of those, we get 2 out of 3 of those, then I think it could be a very, very long series for the Warriors. And I think this could be, I don't want to use the wrong wordage here, but we could really impose our will on this team if we play the way we know we can play.
Agree.
I won't speak about the Rockets from this perspective. For my last point, the point I want to make for my last key is Jonathan Kuminga and whether or not he is I think he's the X factor of this series for the Warriors. He's someone who has fallen out of the rotation, it seems, and probably won't be on the roster next season. It doesn't really seem like they have. One, he has to get paid, I believe, because this is what he'll be an RFA this summer, I believe. So one, he has to get paid, but two, like I don't think the Warriors want to pay him. They don't really want to play him. But I talked to some Warriors fans. They somewhat expect him to be in this series, even though he hasn't played a lot recently. To what degree? Don't really know. But I do know that one of the biggest reasons we did not beat the Warriors in the first 2 games we saw them this season was because of Jonathan Kuminga and Andrew Wiggins just being the super tall, lengthy, athletic wings. And quite honestly, they were picking on our smaller defenders, mainly like Fred VanVleet, right? That was a huge reason why we were not able to win both of those games. Andrew Wiggins is in Miami now, so we don't have to really worry about him, being the downhill demon that he was against us. But Kuminga is still there. And he's someone who can still make plays headed downhill. Like I said, whether or not because I know he's kind of up and down as a player right now. But I think that if the Warriors kind of approach it from the same perspective they had in those first couple of games, which will be in that crunch time offense, it is find Fred, pick on Fred. One, is Ime okay with saying, hey, Fred, you may not be able to close this playoff game. I know you're the leader on the court for this team, and you've been pivotal in just about everything we've done. But you might, for the sake of winning, like they're hunting you. We might have to sit you down and like maybe plug in a Tari East in there, run a minute the one, go super big, and try to insulate ourselves defensively that way. Or like I said, is Kuminga one? Is he excelling in attacking that? Right? Is that something that he's finding success in? I think that's going to be. Because like I said, you know what you're going to get from Steph. You know what you're going to get from Jimmy. You know what you're going to get from Draymond. I expect Buddy and Pods to have games where they hit a decent amount of threes, right? Or we're going to have to respect them in that aspect. I think what can kind of throw a wrench in our plans is if Kuminga then comes in and, like I said, imposes his will on our smaller defenders, which he did, like I said, a couple of times in those first couple of games. So I think the key is just what does Jonathan Kuminga bring to the game for the Warriors? And if he is bringing that energy that he brought in the first couple of games we saw them this series, what pivot will Ime be willing to make? And is he willing to make the pivot first and foremost? Because Ime is the kind of guy where, like we saw Fred get killed in both those games, and we just let Fred die over and over again. Like, that's kind of what we do. We kind of don't. To Ime's credit, as the season progressed, we started seeing a bit more adjustments. That's when we started going more to like the zone and stuff like that, which I think should make what Kuminga does a bit less effective. But Ime has shown he's the kind of coach where like he's okay sticking to what his philosophies are. Right? We saw like against the Lakers, right? I mean, I was fine with it, but we let DFS and what's the other dude on that team, dude?
Gabe Vincent.
Gabe Vincent. They combined for I think 40 points that night. And they did miss. And at no point in time did we adjust. And I'm not saying that we should have. I mean, it happens, right? If Gabe Vincent and DFS combine for 40, you lose. It is what it is. But like, to evidence my point is like we didn't adjust. We stuck to what we believed in at that point in time. So in the playoffs, will we adjust? Is there an adjustment to be made there? Will Kuminga force that adjustment? I think he's someone who can. So I guess that last key is just like I said, just what does he bring to the game? And then if he does bring what he's brought in the past, are we willing to make adjustments, and what those adjustments to what Kuminga is bringing? So that's all I had to say. Is anybody something you want to add?
No, I think that's like an underrated storyline going into the series. The last series that Ime had as the Celtics head coach is the first series he's playing as the Rockets head coach. So he was pretty much picked on by the media about how he guarded Steph in that Celtics final series. So it's a bit of a revenge series for him too, seeing how he's adjusted with different personnel. So I do agree with your point. Seeing how email adjusts is also going to be a massive key in the series.
Yeah, I was gonna say something very similar. Fred, I didn't even think about this key. Yeah, he did get killed on those switches with Kuminga and Wiggins. Now that those guys aren't seemingly there, we'll see what Kuminga, if he plays, they have to be able to adjust and take on Fred in those moments if he's getting picked on and they're getting a bunch of buckets. That is why the Rockets lost a few of those first two games, as Will mentioned. So, yeah, just making adjustments is the key to the playoffs. I think the Rockets have the personnel to beat Golden State. I do believe they are the better roster. It'll come down to experience. The Rockets don't have much experience, but if experience takes over for the Warriors, then yeah, they'll have the edge. But I think the Rockets can win this series for the keys that we mentioned. But that's all I have in this episode. Dre, did you have anything else you wanted to mention?
No, I just appreciate y'all for having me back on the show again. The road to hunting down Dub has begun. We gonna get to what do I need, 8 appearances then?
We said 7. I don't even know if it's been 7. We'd
Okay.
have to go back and count, but you're probably close. I'm not gonna hold you. I can go back and
Yeah,
look.
we gonna hunt J Dub down.
There you go. And of course, you got to plug yourself. You got to plug the socials and everything.
Oh yeah. You guys can follow me on Twitter at Willems WILLLUMZ. Follow the podcast at the Right Read Podcast. Had a little bit of a snafu with the place that records our episodes, but we're getting that fixed. So some new episodes should be coming out soon. And follow me on YouTube, even though I don't post YouTube videos, and we'll be getting mad at me for it. DeAndre Does Hoops. I will start posting videos again soon. I promise.
There we go.
I appreciate you, Dre. And
Cool,
that's another
man.
episode of the Bradeaux and Will Show. We'll be back soon. Thank you guys for listening.